Welcome into another Dolphins Today Ask Anything mailbag. Love doing this because you know what? Nothing's off limits, and we just ask away. Nothing like a Dolphins mailbag, and we're getting right into it. And for that, we go to Eric Cummings' question, which is a tremendous question from a super chat question. If you want a super chat, you get to skip the line and all the questions. His question is, have you heard us trading for Chase Young? I have not heard any of that specifically, but let's talk about that a little bit. The Dolphins have proven they'll make some trades. They brought in Chase Claypool a week ago. That was a pretty big trade. Now, they've done major, some would even say blockbuster trades when you consider Tyreek Hill was acquired through a trade, Bradley Chubb was acquired through a trade, and then most recently Jalen Ramsey. So trading is in GM's Chris Grier's DNA. So I never rule out the possibility of trading, but I have not heard anything specifically about Chase Young. This Dolphins defense, albeit against the lowly Giants, it's a one-game sample size, but they were incredible, especially up front. A guy like Chase Young, known for his pass rushing abilities, but Andrew Van Ginkel, Zach Sealer, a lot of Dolphins players were prominent in the passing attack in sacking Daniel Jones and then Tyrod Taylor when he took over. Not saying the Dolphins don't need any help up front. You could always use a guy like Chase Young, but I don't know if specifically Chris Grier will target Chase Young because I think this is just me going off my thoughts is if the Dolphins were to make a trade for a defensive player, it'd be in the back seven as opposed to up front because I think they feel pretty good about their pass rush. Oh, Chad Jones, are you serious? This guy's unbelievable. There's nobody like him. $100 super chat. We're going to have to rename Dolphins Today to Chad Jones Today. It never ends. This guy's unbelievable. I told you it gets wild on Dolphins Today. It gets crazy. I'm going to have people calling for my well-being. Are you okay? I'm not. The biggest guy in the office with the best shoulders just shook me like a rag doll, and I still can't feel it. But Chad Jones, you're unbelievable. I think I got to see a doctor or for perhaps a chiropractor to get me bounced back into shape after that $100 super chat from Chad Jones. Woo! All right, we're back, baby. Woo! All right. What do you think Miami will target in trades? Should we target another offensive lineman? Maybe, perhaps, the name that comes to mind with potential offensive lineman, Garrett Bowles from the Denver Broncos. I think Denver might be having a fire sale. I mean, they have punted on the season. The Sean Payton experience has been a complete failure. And, in fact, I would say, Sean, look out, it's unbelievable. The best shoulders in the office right here. They're the best shoulders. He's chugging a beer. Look at that. That's what you get on Dolphins Today. It's unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. What's going to happen next? I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. Now, as I was saying, so Garrett Bowles is a really good offensive lineman that I think could help this Dolphins offensive line. He's very unhappy in Denver. He said all he ever does is lose in Denver, and he's a proven veteran in this league. So if they were to make a move for the offensive line, I think Garrett Bowles would be a guy to target, but you also got to consider Teron Armstead's coming back, and really this Dolphins offensive line, albeit thin, has played really well other than the one game against Buffalo, but you take that game out as an outlier, and the other four games have been arguably tremendous. So I love the Dolphins' offensive line. And if they do make a move, I hope they target Garrett Bowles. JB, the first-time super chatter. This guy's unbelievable. Could you see Jeff Wilson and Cedrick Wilson being trade candidates when the trade deadline gets a little bit closer? Yes, absolutely I could, because they're both at position groups that I think the Dolphins have a lot of depth and could utilize that depth in the way of a trade to bring in maybe a defensive back or, as we just discussed, an offensive lineman. So the thing with Cedrick Wilson is he took a pay cut to be in Miami in the offseason. I think he wants to be here, and I think he's utilized in special teams. He does a little bit, obviously, as a receiver. They've used him in the run game on jet sweeps and things like that. So he has a lot of value. Now, River Craycraft's going to be coming off the IR and could be another receiver to add to the rotation. Braxton Berrios has been really good. And then, of course, you've got the two heavy hitters in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I love the Dolphins' wide receiver room, but they could perhaps utilize some of that depth to make a trade. So to answer your question, yes. And kind of the same with Jeff Wilson. We'll do this. I love when people say this. It's kind of the same, but a little bit different. So not exactly the same at all. So Jeff Wilson coming off IR, I don't know if the appeal will be there league-wide, because anytime you get a guy that's been around in the league that's coming off IR, especially at a position like running back that already lends itself to, unfortunately, the reality of the NFL is running backs get hurt a lot. So I don't know if a team's going to be shelling up a lot to return for Jeff Wilson, whereas he could just time it up perfectly to where Devon Achane goes out right as he's recovering from IR and becoming a little bit more healthy and could just step in and fill that void. So the Dolphins have kind of a 4-game sample size here with 2 very easy games against the Patriots and, of course, on Sunday against the Panthers. Also 2 very difficult games to maybe test the waters a little bit. So I wouldn't expect Jeff Wilson Jr. to be dealt for that reason, especially when you consider that the running back, they are a position where you need a lot of that depth. So I don't think, and Achane's a perfect example. Nobody saw that injury coming, and the rookie phenom sidelined and on IR. All right, Dolphins heavily favored again this week. What else should we look for in games like these? I love this question because I get to put my football X's and O's hat on a little bit here, because like the game against the Giants, the Dolphins were heavy favorites. So you start to look for some things that this team can improve upon. And yes, obviously, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways. Winning is the number one priority, the number one goal. I'd rather win ugly than lose cute. Throw all the cliches out the window, whatever you want to say about that. But goal number one to win the game, obviously. But there are certain areas this Dolphins team, I'm looking for them to improve upon, starting with cleaning up the turnovers. And we'll get more into this in our preview, but the Dolphins have committed far too many turnovers to this point. And worse, they haven't forced as many turnovers. So they're actually -3 in turnover differential. So I want to see them clean up that area. But I like your question about whether or not this is a game that's very winnable. Of course it is. The spread indicates that. So let me know in the comments, what say you? Do you think this is going to be an easy win? Type Y for yes or N for no. All right, Sherry May, one of the realest of the real. We love Sherry May. Their question is, #Dolphins, I do not believe Belichick will reach Mr. Shula's record before getting released from the Patriots. What do you think? Yeah, look, I said it in the open. The sky is falling in New England, and Bill Belichick has got to be one of the grumpiest, angriest mans to ever live. I think if Will Ferrell saw him, he'd say, oh, he's an angry little elf, because he just looks so mad on the sidelines at all times. And for his own sanity, I would hope that he doesn't want to continue coaching, because he just looks so miserable. So I don't know off the top of my head how many wins he needs to reach to get to Don Shula's record. I know it's within striking distance, and that a lot of people have speculated that's why he's staying on with the Patriots as long as he has. But that's just a dicey situation altogether when you consider Robert Kraft, the owner, Belichick, the GM, Belichick, the head coach. And if it were me, look, all I can say is what I do. If I was Belichick, I'd hang it up and call it a career. I'd stop chasing that record. But to each their own. All right, I want to thank Game Time as our proud presenting sponsor of today's mailbag. Look, Game Time's awesome. I've been telling you about them for weeks, and I was using Game Time way before Chat Sports. In fact, I can remember the day of a game, My buddies and I said, hey, let's go to the game. It was a baseball game. And what are we going to do for tickets? I said, fear not, guys. I got the plan. Game Time. Download the app. It's the only ticketing app you'll ever need. Also, what I love about it, really easy to use. And you get a real picture of where you're sitting. I know that's a little thing, but I love the fact that the app shows you a real picture of where your seats are going to be. Plus, which is a big plus, you also get the peace of mind of knowing it's the best deal, last minute, lowest price guaranteed. Also, for being a Dolphins Today fan and a Dolphins Today subscriber, we've got a special deal for you. Check this out, $20 off your first purchase when you use that promo code FINSCHAT. That's PHINSCHAT, FINSCHAT. So, snag tickets today without any stress, because that is what Game Time is all about. Download the Game Time app, create that account, use the code FINSCHAT with PHINSCHAT, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but it's real simple, people. Download the app, create an account, redeem the code with FINSCHAT for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Don't worry, we'll have that link in the comments in the description as well, but you see it right there on your screen. FINSCHAT, PHINSCHAT. Game Time takes the stress out of buying tickets, even if it's last minute. That's why I love them. Kelly Hutchinson, what do we have here? How about this question? Dolphins, have you heard anything about if we are going to upgrade our offensive line before the deadline? I really haven't, and I don't want to say that's concerning, but I mentioned Garrett Bowles as a possibility. There's just not a lot out there at the position group of offensive line. They're so hard to come by, and for that reason, you don't really see a lot of deals with potential trades with offensive linemen. And so I wish I had more on that one other than it's a wait and see kind of ordeal. And a lot of that can be said with all of these trade talks in general. You know, we'll hear rumors, and go back a couple weeks ago, we were talking the Dolphins could make a trade for a wide receiver. We threw out some names, and then 2 days later, they trade for a wide receiver. Now, we didn't have the exact names. We're not that good, but we did kind of narrow it down to where the Dolphins could be making a move for a wide receiver. They make a trade for Chase Claypool. So that's why you subscribe. But on the offensive line front, I don't have anything as of yet, but as anything, it's fluid, and we'll keep an eye out, and an ear for that matter. All right, Christian Z, how concerned are you with the turnovers? Great question. I'll try not to spend 5 hours on this because I've been talking, but I'm very concerned. Now, a couple of those interceptions haven't been to his fault. In fact, the second one where his hand was actually hit on the release, that's what made the ball fly out at an awkward angle. I don't think that was his fault. And I know I'm only talking about one game. But in general, up to this point, the Dolphins have kind of defied the way football usually plays out, statistically speaking. Usually, if you lose the turnover battle, you don't win the game. But that hasn't been the case with the Dolphins this year. They're -3. They've committed 8 turnovers compared to just 5 forced turnovers. And there's been several games in which they lost the turnover battle, but were still able to come out on top. So don't ask me how that happens. I think we just thank the football gods that it hasn't cost us to this point. But I am concerned. I want to see them clean that up. Mostert had a couple of fumbles against Buffalo. Achane had a fumble against the Giants. We just can't have that. It's football guy talk. It's cliche, but take care of the football. So I'm concerned. I've got it at about a 7.5 right now. Where are you with it? Let me know in the comments. What is your concern level with the offense's 8 turnovers through 5 games of play? Scale it for me, 1 through 10. All right, our guy, Eric Cummings, is back. What's going on, my guy, A 2-time super chatter. How will they use Chase Claypool? Great question, and I am probably more fascinated by this than most because he's a big guy. They've talked about using him at tight end. In fact, Mike McDaniel even talked about that at his press conference today and saying, I'm not going to rule anything out. A guy that versatile can be utilized in a number of different ways. And so I'm pretty curious to see as well how they can utilize a guy like Claypool. Now, say what you will about him. He's had his locker room issues. I mean, the Bears were telling him, hey, don't even show up to the practice facility. That's how sick of you we are. But I think a fresh start in Miami, a new environment, a winning culture, all of that is going to bode well for this guy who's really, I hate to use this type of verbiage, but he's kind of on his last leg of an NFL career. So if it doesn't work out in Miami, he could probably kiss his NFL career goodbye. So I think there's going to be a motivational factor there as well. And obviously, I'm more optimistic because I think if you ask Harrison Graham, our Bears host, he would say, get him out of there. You guys can have him. But again, we didn't give up a second-round pick for him like the Bears did. We simply exchanged a sixth-round pick for a seventh-round pick and then got Chase Claypool. So I'm excited to see how Mike McDaniel and Frank Smith utilize him in the offense. Because, listen, Mike McDaniel said it when they first got him. Look, he's a big 6'4" guy that can run really fast and catch the ball. That's a guy that's going to thrive in a Mike McDaniel offense. Look how well he's been able to feature his weapons up to this point. They're on a historic pace. More total yards than any team ever in the history of the National Football League in 5 games, in the first 5 games of the season. So adding another weapon to that, it's exciting to see. We might see him at tight end. Who knows? All right, Miami Dolphin 22. Did you watch Mike McDaniel's press conference today? He seemed very evasive surrounding what exactly Achane's injury is and if he needs surgery or not. I watched portions of it. I read the transcript, and I know exactly what you're referring to. But I think, listen, to try to put your mind at ease a little bit here, I think that's how every coach talks, especially when it relates to a specific player's injury. They never want to put timelines on these things. I think Achane going on IR kind of gives us as much of an indication as we're going to get as, hey, it's more than 4 weeks. Use the bye week, use that 6 total weeks to try to get healthy, and then we reevaluate. So I'm not one to try to lose sleep and find the hitting meanings in a coach's press conference because I think more often than not, those coaches hate doing those pressers. Now, we're lucky to have Mike McDaniel because, A, he's hilarious, and B, I do think he gives answers with substance, whereas guys like Belichick just go, we're on to Cleveland. And McDaniel is actually thoughtful and uses some type of answer that, you know, at some times will give you something to chew on, but I don't think there's anything to really make of how vague he was with Devon Achane's injury because I think that's just more a product of coach talk, if nothing else. All right. Will Phillips play this weekend? So glad this one came up because I checked it right before we started this segment. He practiced today. So, limited participant in practice, something to keep our eye on. And the last 3, maybe even 4 weeks, he's kind of been that up and down. Sometimes you get good reports, sometimes not so good reports. Obviously, he sat out the last 2 games. But in the time where the Dolphins have used Andrew Van Ginkel and his replacement, the defense has been pretty good. And Andrew Van Ginkel has been really good in his absence. So it feels like there's not this rush to get Jaelan Phillips back. But obviously a impactful contributor that's been on the Dolphins defense for a couple of years now has really helped. And so you want to see him back in the lineup. But I don't know if this is the week you try to really push him back because that Panthers offense really doesn't scare me, and you'd hate for him to re-aggravate something in trying to come back too soon. Last question, Frank DeLong. Frank, what's up, Frank? Is it realistic to think Tyreek Hill could break the all-time receiving record? Another one I had on my mind as well. And so let's dive into this a little bit. Now, NFL record for receiving from Calvin Johnson, 2012, for the Detroit Lions, 1,946 yards. That's a lot. Also a lot because back then it was a 16-game season, 17 weeks. Now we have an 18-week season where teams play 17 games. So if you're thinking about it in terms of receiving yards per game, Tyreek Hill has one more game than Calvin Johnson did to try to eclipse that mark. He's on pace right now. He's on an incredible pace right now. Let me make sure I have this right, but he is on pace for well over 2,000 yards receiving because he's averaging 130 yards receiving per game right now. Now, I know it's only a 5-game sample size, but given the pace he's on, how well he's executed in that offense and how well Mike McDaniel and Frank Smith utilize him in that offense, I think it's perfectly realistic to see him continue on this path and pass Calvin Johnson's record. Cooper Kupp almost did it in 2021. He came up about 40 yards short. And so, again, that is proof that it can be done. And I think Tyreek Hill is the guy that breaks the all-time season single season NFL receiving record. So, it'll be fun to watch. I'm excited. Tyreek Hill has been one of many, many highlights this season in the Dolphins' 4-1 start, and we are just getting started. That's why you want to stay locked in to Dolphins Today. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Dolphins breaking news, Dolphins live shows, and Dolphins live watch parties. Stay locked in. Subscribe to Dolphins Today.